Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the channel. For this week's video, we're going to be doing things a bit different, getting away from the cosplay and TV show type things, and we're going to talk about the books I've been reading, and pretty much me getting back into reading the last few months or so. So for some background, when I was in high school, I read a lot. I was really big into reading all of the Lord of the Rings series. There was a series called Pendragon that I read every single book for. So yeah, mostly fiction, some nonfiction books as well. One that comes to mind is a book called, I think it was like Devil in a White City. It's about the Chicago World's Fair and some event that was going on there. I'll copy the book here so you can see it. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, as I got into undergrad, law school, I just kind of fell out of reading. I used to read for enjoyment, and then once I had to read for a job, whenever I would break free of it, I didn't want to read anymore. So over the last month or so, really over the last year, I thought about getting back into the habit of reading and making it a hobby again. And over the last 2 months, I've done just that. So in this video, we're going to go over 4 books, 2 that I have finished in the last month, and 2 that I'm currently working on. The first book that we're going to cover is Atomic Habits. I have it, but I don't have it with me at the time of recording. So I'll just give you guys an image of what that looks like and talk about it a little bit. The second book is going to be the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The third book is one that I'm reading right now, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the final book is a fiction book, which is Warhammer 40K, Avenging Son. Now, traditionally, like I mentioned, I always read fantasy type novels, but I wanted to mix things up a little bit and also take a dive into the self-help world of books. So I'm gonna go through each of the books and give one thing about each that I found interesting. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about those, and hopefully it ends up turning into a nice video. So let's get started. So I have some notes here, and I'm going to be referring to them. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I'm reading what's on my screen. But to begin, Atomic Habits is by James Clear. It was the first book that I jumped back into during the later half of November. It took about a week to finish, and it's one that I definitely recommend. The book is all about building good habits and breaking bad ones through small changes over time. It focuses on systems instead of goals, and overall I found the book to be pretty helpful and informative. The only complaint that I had about the book was that the author at certain points seemed like he was writing to hit a word count. Like he would hit the main point, but then he would kind of space it out. You know when you were in school and you had to reach a word count or a page count, you started like putting in pictures that didn't really fit what you were talking about, just so you could hit the page count. He kind of falls into that, but notwithstanding that, the book is very informative. So one thing about the book that I wanted to point out is the discussion around goals and how to reach them. Now, it's great to have goals. We all have goals, but the issue with calling something a goal and then working towards it is that usually if we don't see results in about a week or two, we end up letting the goal fall by the wayside. So for example, if you have a goal to reach a certain weight, whether it be to lose weight or to gain weight by a certain time period or within a certain time frame, you start going to the gym, you start eating right, but after about a week or so, you're not seeing results because things like that take more time. And because of that, we end up falling off. With New Year's now here, I know a lot of people have New Year's resolutions to do a variety of things, but because the goal may be something distant, eventually it's going to fall away because it's taking too long. So what Atomic Habits does is encourages you to find ways to make the process of obtaining that goal more enjoyable. So for example, going to the gym can be an initial hump to get over, a hurdle. Eating right can be boring, but that's where you find yourself making room for enjoying the process. So you say, hey, well, this week I'll try to find ways to experiment with new recipes. Or when I go to the gym, maybe I'll take somebody with me. Maybe I'll try a different workout from a different source on certain days of the week. I think another example would be, instead of going to the same gym, if you have a membership like, say, Planet Fitness, where you can attend any gym in the area or like in the country, really. You explore going to different gyms. And I'm not saying you got to go to a different state to, mix things up, but maybe there's a gym 10 minutes from where you live, or 15 minutes. Maybe just finding ways to make the process more enjoyable. And once you finally hit whatever your goal is, you'll find yourself not reverting back to old habits. You've enjoyed the process so much, so you're going to keep on going with it. And now it's become a habit by these short little changes, Atomic Habits. So yeah, that was the first book, Atomic Habits, and something that I thought was pretty interesting about it. Definitely recommend it. And let's move on to the next one. So the second book is called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's advertised as a book to assist with building relationships, influencing others, and improving social skills. While the title is called How to Win Friends and Influence People, I don't take that title literally. I think that this book is more so helpful with eliminating the friction that you may find in more social settings. So how to handle arguments or disagreements, maybe with people outside of your home, how to be better involved in social interactions, maybe at like a work party or in the work office, how to interact with people that you come in contact with on like a daily basis or in passing. That's what I found that this book was most helpful for, which brings me to the one excerpt that I wanted to bring up. So yeah, one of the sections that he has in his book is titled, You Can't Win an Argument. So let's see. He goes, 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with each of the contestants more firmly convinced than ever that he is absolutely right. You can't win an argument. You can't, because if you lose it, you lose it. And if you win it, you lose it. Why? Well, suppose you triumph over the other man and shoot his argument full of holes, and prove that he is non compos mentis, which pretty much means he's irrational, he makes no sense. Then what? You will feel fine, but what about him? You have made him feel inferior, you have hurt his pride, he will resent your triumph, and a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So what do I think this means? I think a great example is comment sections, right? Arguing in comment sections. It's a waste of time. It doesn't prove or solve anything. And so if you're going into a discussion with someone and it's about maybe a hotly debated topic or some type of disagreement, you can tell pretty quickly if the other person and if yourself are open to hearing, the other point of view, the facts, and maybe having your mind changed or them having their mind changed. But if you can tell early on that they do not, they're going to be firm and they're not going to change their mind, that's an argument. So that discussion is not going to be productive. And that's what differentiates the discussion between a regular conversation or like a debate to an argument, because no one's going to change their mind. And the end result of that is going to be, one, you either lose the debate or the argument, or you win and that person, underneath, like maybe not out loud, has a disdain for you. And then some people just are built to say, hey, if I lose an argument, I'm going to anchor down deeper into what I think. I'm not going to change my mind at all anyway. So why would you waste your time with that? It's just an interesting way to look at arguments and how to avoid them and how to approach them going forward. Just asking the question like, hey, are we both willing to change our minds about this thing? And if not, it's an argument. So you can't win it. Avoid it. All right, so now we're moving into the books that I'm currently reading. I'm about halfway through each of these books. And the first one we're going to start with is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I hope I'm saying that right. Back to my notes. So this book is advertised as a principle-centered approach to personal and professional effectiveness, focusing on character development through 7 habits. So I view this book as the inverse of How to Win Friends and Influence People. While this one deals with interacting with people outside of yourself, this one kind of helps you understand yourself more. Helps with internal interactions or relationships with yourself, self-awareness, things like that. So the way that the author communicates information in this book is by giving you, of course, a series of habits, but he breaks them down and explains the pros and cons of doing things one way versus doing them a different way. He uses real world examples from his time in his career. He also gives you examples of how he's used these habits with his kids and his family and how it's helped him pretty much maneuver through life. I'm going to read you all one excerpt that I found pretty interesting and kind of explain what I think about it. So yeah, let's go. So this section is from habit 1, be proactive. And he's talking about self-awareness. And he has this concept called the circle of concern. So I'll read what he says it is and I'll kind of break it down a little bit. So another excellent way to become more self-aware regarding our own degree of proactivity is to look at where we focus our time and energy. We each have a wide range of concerns: our health, our children, problems at work, the national debt, nuclear war. We could separate those from things in which we have no particular mental or emotional involvement by creating a circle of concern. That's the circle of concern. As we look at those things within our circle of concern, it becomes apparent that there are some things over which we have no real control, and others that we can do something about. We can identify those concerns in the latter group by circumscribing them within a smaller circle of influence. By determining which of these two circles is the focus of most of our time and energy, we can discover much about the degree of our proactivity. So this is the circle of concern, but within that is a circle of influence. And a circle of influence are those things that you can directly control. So as the author mentioned, right, we're all concerned about so many things: children, family, work, things going on in politics, the world, across the country. But then there's the circle of influence, things that are in a smaller circle within the overall circle of concern, things that we can't control. Things like our health, things like our response to things, our relationships with, family and friends, stuff like that. And so what this section of the book pretty much talks about is when you're being proactive, be proactive and devote time and energy to the things that you can more closely control. Now, it's still great to be concerned about the bigger picture things, and maybe you can do little small parts here and there. And I don't think he says, devote no time and energy to those things, right? You can still be involved in the bigger picture things, but devote more time and energy to the things within your circle of influence, things that you can more directly control and have a greater impact on. And you'll find that if you shift your focus to those things, that your mind will sort of shift, and any stress or anxiety that you had about always trying to fix everything or solve every issue of the world or issues with other people will start to lessen, because you'll understand that there are certain things that I can't control, certain things that I can influence, and others that I can't, put as much of an impact on as I might think. So I found this to be pretty helpful, and I've already started, implementing a lot of the things in this book. And so the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one that I didn't think was going to be as influential as it is. But like I say, for internal thought, self-awareness, internal communication, this is a perfect book. And I still have maybe a quarter of the way to go. So, okay, so the final book that we're going to talk about today is a fiction book called Warhammer 40K, 40,000. Avenging Son, a Dawn of Fire novel by Guy Haley. Now, a little bit of background. Warhammer is originally a tabletop game, and there was lore written about it to explain the game. I think it started maybe in the 70s or 80s, but here we are so many years later, and the lore has gotten so expansive and pretty interesting that they've written books, they've made video games, a few short TV shows about it, and a lot of fan fiction has been written, videos too, about the world of Warhammer. It's set in a distant future where this guy, the Emperor of Mankind, he sought to unite all of humanity that was, spread out across the universe under one banner. And he did it by means of diplomacy, but also just outright destruction. He had these sons called Primarchs that he kind of genetically created, and it was 20 of them, or a few, I guess they don't talk about, so 18, I guess. And eventually they all turned, well, not all of them, some of them turned on each other, and it started a big civil war. Emperor is out of commission, and 10,000 years later, during the 40K time period, now we're picking up on what's going on, and the world sucks, right? While it's cool to like see the different Space Marines and folks engaged in battle and stuff, there's another element of like humanity and what they're going through, and there's like all these different alien species and stuff like that. So yeah, my interest in Warhammer started over a year ago when the video game Space Marine 2 released, and leading up to the release, I started doing a bunch of research, trying to learn more about the lore of the world and everything. I went to a local video game place where they were doing like the tabletop tournaments, and I just watched just to like see what it was all about and talk to the people that knew more than I did. The game came out, I loved it, and I spent the last year or so watching YouTube videos, learning more about the setting. And through those videos, a lot of the YouTubers and people on Instagram, TikTok would give recommendations on the best places to start in terms of reading the books of Warhammer 40K. And one of the books was Avenging Son. So yeah, so far it's been a really good book. I think the author does a really good job of explaining in great detail what's going on. Like the way that Guy describes the settings and the way people are responding to certain things makes you feel like you're there, even though you don't want to be. And a lot of the information that I had about Warhammer or the world of Warhammer was from the perspective of the big people, right? The people who were powerful, the Primarchs or the Space Marines or the different Chaos Gods, or at a very high level, the different alien species and things like that. But what this book has given me is more insight into the humans, the everyday people who are pretty much suffering while all this stuff is going on. And one of the things that I wanted to point out as like the excerpt for this book is the perspective of a human in this book. I believe her name is Nara, or Nara, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's spelled Nawra. So apparently she was, they said bartered, but it was sold to this arm of the government called the Departamento Processium, and their whole purpose is to process endless scores of paperwork. And so she wakes up, she goes to a cubicle, and it's like rows of like maybe thousands of people sitting doing the exact same thing every single day. I think they only get like maybe a few hours of sleep. They never go outside, and they're like harshly looked over, and they can't question anything. And I think that the penalty for talking back or pointing out hardships or something is probably death. So they just put their head down, they just do it. Like there's so many people that just live in these worlds, and I mean that's all they can do, because you got these giant Space Marines and government people and stuff that if you step out of line, they can crush you with like a finger. A lot of interesting things happen in this book and in this world, but this book is definitely giving me more insight into like the life of the everyday person. So yeah, that's Warhammer 40K, Avenging Son, Dawn of Fire novel. And yeah, that wraps up the books that I'm reading and have read. Let me know if you've read any of these, your thoughts on any of the excerpts that I mentioned. Did any of these connect with you? If you read these books, let me know of a line or a thought from them that struck with you, or something that you've applied in your everyday life that has made a difference. I'm more than happy to discuss them in the comments. If you found this video interesting, consider liking and subscribing. I release a video every week, and I think this is my 4th or 5th video in a row, so we're keeping it going. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, but I'll see you next week for the next video. Thanks.